Okay, should we wait for a few seconds and just get room tone?
I don't know why it did that.
Okay, my name is Stephanie Gieslin, and I'm here recording with Joy Huntington. We are interviewing Miss Camille Mays here at the Sherman Park Community Association building at 3526 West Fond du Lac Avenue in Sherman Park. It is July 13th, 2017 at about 10:15 a.m. now. Miss Mays, I know you already signed the forms, but if you could just give like a verbal consent, letting us know that you understand that this is going to be used in the UWM archives and for our class and posted publicly.
Yes, I understand, and I give you permission to do so.
Thank you so much. All right, Miss Mays, if you could just start with telling us a little bit about yourself and your background here in Sherman Park.
Okay. My name is Camille Mays, and I've been a resident for 5 years now in the home that we're in Sherman Park. When I was a small child, I lived in Sherman Park for a short time, but we've just been in this home for the last 5 years. I've done a lot of work in the community prior to my community organizing job at Sherman Park Community Association. And I have a lot of ties to different entities in the neighborhood. I have good relationships with the Center Street Bid, my neighbors, and the aldermen in the area.
That is wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what your first impressions of Sherman Park were, both when you lived here as a little child, maybe memories, and also when you came back to the area 5 years ago?
One thing when I was little, I just remember we actually lived on 48th and Center, and it's just interesting because now that's like one of the not so good blocks in the area, and I always look back like, wow, we lived on that block when I was a kid. I couldn't imagine living on that block now as an adult, and so I look back at that. But the neighborhood is really rich and diverse, and it's just a really beautiful neighborhood with historic homes. Like, I always remember driving through and looking at the houses in Sherman Park and loving to look at the houses over there, and that's still a thing that I find pleasure in. And then also I have an organization, the Peace Garden Project, and it made me want to focus more on the Sherman Park area versus the whole city. So I like the diversity, the color, the life. It's just a different kind of people in Sherman Park.
Yeah, can you tell us a little more about that? What do you think makes the people, the neighbors in Sherman Park, different from other places that you've lived?
I always try and figure that out. I don't know if it's because it's right in the middle of the city. I know it's a lot of history to it. Some of the people, it's just a variety of different things. So you have the people who moved there a long time ago and just never will leave, no matter how it changed. They're just not going. And then you have just people who are moving there in the area because it's a convenient spot, because it's in the middle of the city. And then you have people who actually invest and take pride in the fact that they're in Sherman Park and they want to have a property in Sherman Park or on Grant Boulevard or, right on Sherman. And it's just a mix of different types of people from different backgrounds, different races. It's just like a melting pot in that area, and I'm not sure quite what makes it different, but it is a distinct difference in the Sherman Park neighborhood versus the city.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what, besides you talked about the people, but I guess in general, what makes Sherman Park special? And if you were talking to a family who was looking to buy a new home, what might you say to someone who was looking at Sherman Park and other places too about why they should come here?
It's a lot of historic homes there. in Sherman Park. If you drive around, it's just the homes are so beautiful. They speak for themselves. Just like you go to certain neighborhoods, the East Side or Lake Drive, those homes speak, to people, and that's how the homes of Sherman Park are. It's just a lot of beautiful homes, and again, it's still going back to the people. Like, you feel the sense of community in Sherman Park. I don't feel that sense. Not to say that other neighborhoods don't have a sense of community, but it's a strong sense of community in Sherman Park. It just is.
Mm-hmm. When I met you, it was last weekend at a community led event in the park itself, and I was affected by the way the community came together at that event. I thought it was beautiful, and it's something I haven't seen in the other neighborhoods of Milwaukee I've spent time in. Can you tell us a little bit about that whole culture, how often that happens, and what that's all about to you and the people of Sherman Park?
Well, I think it's really interesting. A lot of times in discussion, people challenge why it's an outrage with certain crimes versus others in communities and things like that. And I always tell people that's not true. It's always things going on behind the scenes on a regular basis to bring people together in the community. And that's just the example of one of the things. How those things go is, it's just picture an imaginary network of neighborhood leaders who get together and they put the call out to the group of neighborhood leaders. That's how we work in the community. And then we have a group of people. You have certain people in certain areas. So our Sherman Park area, we have a large group of community leaders who participate and help each other out. Marquesa held the event, and she worked with City of Light Church, who is another organization who likes to come into that area. It was a lot of different organizations who helped put it together, but Marquesa was solely responsible. So she just put the call out to the community, and everybody pulled together and brought what they could to the table. And then that's usually how it turns out. The following day after that event, we also did the same thing. We had a resident in the area. She wanted to do something for a community member who recently had a 16-year-old son who was killed. She put the call out to the community. Same type of thing that you saw there at the park with the food and the vendors and the people coming together. Same type of thing Sunday. It was free food, bounce houses, just a strong sense of community. People who didn't know each other, they just came out to support her. So that's kind of what we do. We just put the call out and everybody, the team assembles.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I don't think you see that a ton of other places.
Nope,
maybe.
And you don't. And a lot of the people, what people don't understand is often when things are going on in the city and with funding and things, it's just like a ego trip for some to be seen and heard so they can give funds or so they can do things. But it's a lot of other people who are genuine, and you don't always hear or see about those people who are doing so much because they just want to get it done for the community. They don't care about the recognition. Mm-hmm. And not to say that people don't deserve recognition for the things that they do, but it's just a whole band of people who are just out there behind the scenes, and no one would ever know the tons of things that go on behind the scenes.
Is that that network of people behind the scenes, is that through the SPCA, or is that kind of a separate network?
It's just a separate network, and I'm happy to be a part of it personally. And when I came to the organization, I just brought it to them, and we're just all connected. It's a lot of things in the past that didn't work out. As far as community organizations, organizers, or just people in neighborhoods, obviously with the state of the way the city is, what we've been doing isn't working. And so you have a group of leaders, old and new, who are just stepping up and trying some new things and working together instead of in different silos to do things. And we've found in numbers is more successful in making a change. And so that works for us.
That's great. I love, when you say that as a city, what we've been doing isn't working. If you could, I guess, just speak to the city as a whole and the people who are doing these things that aren't working, what would your advice to them be? Or what would you like to see them do differently?
New things. Change is good. If the state of the city has a high crime rate, maybe what we've been doing isn't working. Maybe we should start talking to some of the grassroots organizations and community members who are out there on the ground, because what you find is sometimes organizations and the people higher up, maybe the chief of police or the mayor, they're looking at data and statistics instead of actual situations. Kind of like when you train for a job. Well, when I did, I'm pushing 40, so I don't know if they have videos now, but they would sit us in a training room, and prop this video and tell us, oh, this is how the job is going to go. This is what you do on this video. But then you get out on the job and it's not quite like that. Doesn't quite work that way. And although the training video sounds good and you can do it that way, it just doesn't work that way. And sometimes you find a different way to go about things once you're actually out there working. And I think that's what happens a lot when community organizations and police come up with safety plans or things that are good for the people. They look at the numbers, but they don't look at the dynamics of how it got that way or what really will make it better or things of that nature. So, an example, the crime. People complain about people not reporting crimes or not calling in when there's shootings, but they don't talk about why they're not calling in. They don't talk about the tons of people, including myself, who have called anonymously and police still come to the door. They're not talking about, like, what the people do when they do report the nuisance houses, and then it's in public records, their name and number and where they live, and then those people can retaliate against them. People think about those things and they fear those things, so we have to get to the root cause of some of the issues in the community to change them. And so that's what I mean about changing things, and the old way isn't working.
So you've had crimes that you've reported anonymously and they still show up at your house?
Absolutely. I've had that. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I just don't mind as much because most people know what I do. And so my neighbors call me to call the police, and everyone knows that I'm going to call the police. So it's not as bad in my case. But to speak to some of my residents, that could be a life or death situation. Their house can be shot up the next day, depending on what the call is. So that's just one of many things that go on that we don't talk about. But I know because I work firsthand with the people and, the police. So.
Speaking of, I guess, crime or the way things have changed, you mentioned that 48th and Center, where you lived as a kid, is a completely different place now, and you wouldn't want to live there as an adult. What's changed, and what do you think caused that change?
Poverty. That's what caused it, And it probably was going on then, but I was a kid, And my vision, my perception is different. I'm just older now. But I'm actually working with the artists and other residents and organizations on a mural on a building on 48th and Center. And I'm real big on visuals. And it's going to add a lot of positivity to that area. And I'm just hoping that over time, that'll create a change or inspiration to the people in that area.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sherman Park Community Association and what it's all about, what you do here?
Yeah, well, the organization has been around longer than me. It's neighborhood based, so we work a lot with community members on organizing block groups and safety issues, beautification issues, housing issues, versus another organization who may focus in on services like job services and or drug services. Like, we refer people to certain things and connect people, but our main focus is neighborhoods, safety, block, groups, and the housing. And so what I do is the community organizing portion. So I do work with residents to do community meetings, but with me having two hats with the Peace Garden Project, I tune in to a lot of the beautification a lot and the safety issues.
Yeah. What is your role like as a local community organizer, like a liaison, I think? What does that entail, and what's your role like?
I kind of cheated a little bit because most community organizers who organize don't live in the area that they work in, but I have a win-win because I work in the area that, I live in the area that I work in, so I don't have to build my residents. I already know them. They already know who I am. I don't have to build a relationship with the alderman in the area. They already know who I am. I don't have to build the relationships with the business or the bid because they already know I've been working with them. So I pretty much came to the organization doing what I was doing already. And so that's great because it's really fun. And I get to do a lot of fun things. I have a part in things like we had trees that got planted in a lot next to the post office on 55th and Center. That's something I would be involved with. Then the mural. And then we have a community garden in the back of Sherman Park. So I get to do lots of different fun things. Work with Pep Nation and program the parks in Sherman Park with the kids. And I could be doing any given thing, any random thing on any given day. You know, we're working on this mural now, so we'll be priming and painting that. You know, so I really love my job. It's very fun.
How did you choose 55th and Center as the location for the mural?
No, it's on 48th and Center,
48th
but
and Center.
55th and Center is the trees. We picked that because we're community based. Basically our ear is to the streets. What do the residents want to turn the neighborhood into? And whatever they want to do, we're there to help them to do that. And so it was a strong need or a request for trees on the lot to beautify it. So in the future we can do farmers markets or just night markets or anything with the lot. You know, it's a strong urge to beautify landscape and community garden. As you can see from that chart, people want to do stuff, you know, for security and to make it better. And so they wanted to do the trees. We sat down with the city and the Alderman Murphy was very cooperative. The aldermen of Sherman Park are very helpful with working with the residents on beautification things. We never have any problems with those things. They work very hard to make it look better. And so Alderman Murphy assisted us and we got some trees on that lot and they're actually there now. And we picked out the trees, what kind of trees will go on the lot, and all of that from, you know, A to Z. And so with the mural, same type of thing. We know that the residents want to make it more beautiful. It's a building there. It has a big, beautiful wall, you know, just plain, just there in that area. And so Safe and Sound worked to find an artist, Tia Richardson, and she's really great. And we had like visioning meetings, and we got residents from the community, young and old, different backgrounds, and we made pictures. We had, you know, she gave us a section of the mural, and she gave us a topic and what she wanted us to draw. And so all of us in the groups, we drew different pictures, and she brought it to life on the mural. So it's just absolutely beautiful, and that's something we did. And then we can volunteer with her to prime it, to trace it, and to paint it. And we can have a part in it. And I think when people have a part in things to beautify the community, they take pride in it too. You know, and so when we're driving by, we'll know, hey, I had a part in that. That's my part of the drawing right there. And I painted that tree or that balloon on that mural, you know, and it's just really something to be proud of. And she said that out of the murals that she's done, this community, our neighborhood, we had the most resident participation that she's ever had. And it was a very special project for her, which again speaks to the people, you know?
Yeah, it seems like there are a lot of people living in Sherman Park who care so much about getting involved in their community and doing things to make it a more beautiful or safer neighborhood. Just to individuals who aren't formally involved in an organization, how do people in this community show their involvement? What do you see?
I mean, it's really weird because I go to a lot of different meetings because I do organizing. And so you will find there's certain people, we call them super residents, and they're all over. They're all over the community trying to find out what's going on over here and what's going on over there and how they can connect and how they can help the neighbors here or how the neighbors over in this area can help them. And you just see them. And what I tell people is when people have the outrage and feel like people are only doing things during certain times, like somebody said that the community is only outraged when it's a police killing. What about the shootings that go on? Well, it's people every day out here. And if someone was involved truly, they would know about the network of people who are out here every day doing things. So that just speaks to their knowledge of things. They would never know how much unless you get in the community and get your hands and feet out there on the ground. And once you start, you find out about this meeting and the next one and this seminar and this hearing, and then you get involved. You want to get involved. You want to hear about the budget. You want to know how you can speak out against this business being open or what the process is to report a nuisance house. Like, you start learning what you can do as your part in the community, and so that's what I see a lot of people doing who aren't with organizations. They're all over. They're at the events trying to find out what's going on, how they can volunteer and support those events, and just what they can offer themselves. A lot of the residents, they have services too. The active residents, things that they do also. Like, you have one lady in the community, she's just a resident and she holds meetings. She started doing meetings so she can get people more involved, and her husband and her have now started a lawn and snow service, and then they employ youth, and they got a contract with the city so that they can employ youth in the community. So they do things to better the people in the community when they're not with the organization. They still do those types of things.
That's amazing. What would your if someone who had no prior involvement, someone who lived here but had just been going about their day, not involved in the community, came to you and asked you, like, Camille, I want to get involved. Where should I start? What's the first thing I should do to get my foot in the door and make a difference? Where would you tell them to begin?
I would ask them if they want to volunteer or be a member of the organization. But I will also let them know it's always something going on. So usually when people come up to me and they tell me that, I'll just ask what area are they in first. And then I'll let them know everything that's coming up. If it's an event coming up, if it's a meeting coming up, if it's something going, like an example, it's coming up, the budget proposal for next year for the city. So now I'm telling all of my residents to make sure they go to that on Monday, so that they can have a say-so and they can let the city know which organizations have helped them a lot and what they want to see out here in the community so that they know how to disperse those funds, amongst the community organizations. And so they know who's really doing and making an impact in the community and who's not, And so those are the things I try and do, keep them informed. And it's like a chain reaction. You go to one meeting and you find out about many more things and information about this and that. It's just as long as you start with the first meeting. And then I also tell people, if you want to get out here and you want to do a lot in the community, get out here and make sure everyone knows who you are and what you do and how you want to help. And people will just start contacting you, and that's kind of how it goes. They start reaching out to you to do this or to do that, and so just putting it out there and getting to know people, it goes from there.
Speaking of making a big impact on the community, I know that you're the founder of the Peace Garden Project, an amazing project, and can you tell us about the Peace Garden Project, how you got started and your vision for it?
So I like the Third Ward a lot. And I like the Third Ward and the East Side because it's a lot of color and it's a lot of art. And you get a sense of just life and happy when you're in the Third Ward and on the East Side. And in our city, if you drive around it, it's not much landscaping in certain parts of the inner city. It's a lot of litter in our city, and one thing that stands out is it's a lot of memorials, whether it may be from an accident or a shooting. It's a lot of issues with businesses being sold. It's a lot of issues with homes being sold, and it's very just discouraging. And I think a lot of people don't know the things that go on behind the scenes. So you have the city workers going out there removing the memorials, and then it's problems sometimes with that. More often than people would think. And often the police have to get involved. And I just think that's really a waste of time. You know, for the police to have to get involved, or for the city workers to feel unsafe, or for the homeowners to have those in front of their homes. But at the same time, I know that the family had a loss, and you want to respect all parties. And so I came up with peace gardens, which is basically landscaping at the bottom of the tree where, per the family's request or somebody who refers me over to the family, with permission, I'll remove those bottles or beers or candles, and I'll landscape with perennials and some annuals that year. And then they'll come back, and then it doesn't have to be removed, and then it just looks like landscaping. So when me or you drive down the block, we don't know, like, we got a block where it was three memorials, and would you want to rent on that block or own a house on that block if you drove down the block and saw instantly? No, right? Yeah. So out of the three memorials, I redid two of them and landscaped the tree. And then in that particular block, it's two parks that they put, two pocket parks on that block. So now you have the two pocket parks on the block, and then the two peace gardens that I did, and then that one memorial is there now. It looks a lot better. It looks like the block is starting to do beautification now. And then it's even promoted some of the neighbors to landscape their homes, even some of the renters. And so the goal with Peace Garden Project was to beautify the neighborhood and to make it something that the community could take pride in, whether it may be from removing the memorials to a beautification project to a mural to a community garden, whatever I can do to make healthy neighbors and healthy neighborhoods and make it look better and something we can take pride in. That's what the Peace Garden Project is about. People just recognize me for the memorials because that just really bothers me, and I kind of started with that because, again, people don't know how big of an issue that becomes between the residents and the families of the memorials.
It seems that way too, that these memorials, unless you're keeping them constantly over time, they get
dilapidated,
dingy, and it's just kind of a grim reminder instead of
exactly.
Yeah, and a garden is a beautiful place where you can grieve.
Yeah, and then not only that, but again, when you're driving through the neighborhood, you don't want to see a long just memorials. They're all over the place, And then again, have you ever, like on our block, one person will get like a certain type of solar light, like they got the solar light posts on their fence, and then somebody else went and got it, or something like that, or somebody will get these flowers and then the next person will go. What I found is that by doing the cleanups that I did, like my neighbors they would look at us and just watch us clean up on the block as we're doing cleanups. Like my own neighbors wouldn't help, wouldn't do anything. And now when I do cleanups, they've already cleaned up their lawn before the cleanup day. They've already, they're doing cleanups, like they're going outside every morning now, cleaning their lawns out. And so our block isn't full of garbage anymore. Like, it takes time. You know, when people don't know better, people say, well, do better. But if they don't know, how can they do better? You have to teach people better instead of judging them and, you know, looking down on them. You just show them. And so I just show them. And now we have, I started a garden. I had 2 other neighbors who started a garden on the block. And I had the kids on the block running every day to help me with the garden on the block. And so that's really cool. And I think that, again, over time, if you teach people, they do differently, you know, if they know better.
What effect do you think that has on the way other people see that street then? If you have people that are on your block that clearly care enough to start a garden, do you think that that deters different activities or brings other certain, you know, desirable people in? What do you think, beyond just having a pretty yard, the effect that has?
Yeah, I think it's like the broken windows theory, right? You go to, or a certain neighborhood. You go to a certain neighborhood and you know, like, oh, this is a good neighborhood. It looks like a good neighborhood because it looks good. And so it does deter some things because we have a block right by me, 1 block east of me, and that block is horrible. And some of it trickled over to our block, but it trickled right back over there because they knew on our block we just were not accepting it. You know, we do care. And it's only a handful of homeowners on our block. People always bring up homeowners versus renters, and it's true that renters often don't care, but it is a lot of renters and long-term renters who do care and take pride in the properties that they're staying in as well. And we just are fortunate enough to have some of them on our block too as well. And we always talk to each other and watch everything. I have a neighbor who will call me. I remember Victory Garden came to bring my dirt for my garden bed, and she called me to see if I knew that they were there and who it was and why. And it was Victory Garden. Like, she calls whenever a bird flies past or whatever, but that's great, you know. And so we speak to each other, we see each other, and I think other people notice who come or who walk through, and the kids who walk through and passing by, we always speak to them. I make it a point to speak to everybody who walks past my home, or when I'm walking, I speak to people. And I think people choose to walk down our block because we're pleasant and they know it's a safe block, you know, versus, again, the block east of me or other blocks around there.
Yeah, something I have noticed through just this short amount of time I've been spending in Sherman Park is even in front of a lot of homes where you can kind of tell that the upkeep of the home has gotten away from the person who owns it. Maybe they're having trouble making ends meet, needs to be painted, the porch is falling apart, whatever. A lot of them will still have really meticulously maintained front yards and beautiful gardens. And you can tell that the person is still putting a lot of effort and caring in a way that they find themselves more able to contribute to making their home and their street look good. And that's something I've found really inspirational. And the fact that people are out there gardening is, I think, contributes, probably more than making them just feel good about their own yard. It makes the community feel good about the community.
I would agree, and I think it is, if a lot of people notice, like you said, the homes may be a little bit, need a little bit of maintenance, but it's something about us in this area. We love landscaping and gardening, and I put that on the people on Sherman and Grant. I think that we drive past those blocks so much, it makes you want flowers driving past those homes and those lawns. It makes you just really want it to be beautiful, like that. And I think it is an inspiration.
I spoke with Christy from Tricklebee Cafe, Christy Melby Gibbons, and she talked about a class series that you and she did together. Where I think you focused on some of that. You talked about gardening, how to grow things, not just flowers, but also food, and how to... can you tell me about that class series and how that might have empowered people to garden?
Yes. So the Healthy Choices workshops, it started because I once, a long time ago, I was very heavy. I was plus sized, and I changed my diet. And then I thought I was eating healthy and doing really good because I've maintained, keeping all of the weight off, and I feel better. And then I had a friend who recently got cancer. And it made me revisit certain things, of course, because they had cancer, natural things. And I just really discovered, like, I'm still eating crap, basically. And so it made me really dive into this, with the healthy eating and growing your own food and how the costs go down once you grow your own food and just all of the interesting things. And I know that in our culture, we don't eat healthy. We just don't. We eat a lot of unhealthy foods. And I know in our culture, it's very hard to switch over to other things when you've been eating certain things your whole life. And so I figure I would go through the transition and then teach people how to make it easy. An example, I started juicing. And when I made my first juices, they were totally gross. They were grainy. It was just disgusting, right? And I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to work. I'm not juicing. I'll just go buy them or something. It just discouraged me. And so that is what goes wrong in our culture, in our community. We get discouraged and we quit and we go back to the crap we were eating. So I made a conscious decision to not, whatever we have in our house, we'll use it up. But I was not buying any more boxed items, no more processed foods, except the pizzas. I can't get away from that. But everything that I bought, the nuggets, the chicken patties, all of those things, I quit. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to eat it. We're going to start going. If I had to spend a little more, I'd rather buy more time with my life, And so I decided that I would make it easier and I would actually take the steps and then I would make it easier for someone else. So I did the juicing classes, the how to grow your own food. This is my first year growing my own food. So we showed people and we knocked down some of those myths. Like a lot of people will use the excuse, well, it's too much to eat healthy. It costs more and this, that, and the other. Okay, well, I'll show you how to grow your food. And then you can eat healthy, and then you're growing your own food, and you know that this is organic versus the dollar more organic, whatever in the store. And then I showed them, okay, well, you can substitute some of the stuff we like, and it'll still taste good. Here are some sugar alternatives. Here are some milk alternatives. Here are some oil alternatives to use versus what we use, where it can still taste good, but this is a substitute to make it healthier for you. Then we went into like the juices, the consistencies, what peels and seeds not to use, how to make it not grainy. If you want it milky or whatever, do a smoothie. Or if you want straight juice, do a cold pressed juicer. And I did a juicing demo, and this is my first year juicing. So if I can do it, you can, and that's what I want to tell people. Like, I'm just starting all of this stuff. I'm not a health guru or anything like that. This is my first year gardening, first year juicing, first year testing my pH and, all of this. And you can do it too. And just trying to promote people to do it. And we had a regular crowd. I built some relationships with neighbors. And then in the community garden that I have, one of our neighbors who goes to the Healthy Choices, we started a community plot in the garden too. And she has a Victory Garden bed at home too. So that's impacting people. And then the kids are coming from my block to the park and bringing other kids. A gang of them are coming up there to help us at the park with the community garden. And they love it. And I was just thinking, like, they could go home and next year they might make their parents get one because they know now and they're learning all of the stuff that I'm teaching them. And so that, that's what the Healthy Choices workshop was about. Just getting other people in the neighborhood to change and to go ahead and jump out on the ledge. And I'm holding their hand, telling them how to do it, and making it easy because it's really hard to transition to healthy eating. It's very hard.
If you continue with the Healthy Choices workshops in the future, are there other topics that you think moving forward you would want to cover in addition to like, the juicing and?
Yeah, so we did the power of growing. We did canning, freezing, juicing, substitutes like, the different milks and oils and stuff. One thing that I want to add to the workshops is seasonings. We can't get away from certain seasonings, just everybody, especially our culture. People typically go with the onion powder, garlic powder, seasoning salt, pepper, the salt. It's so many other seasonings that can add flavor and that have health benefits to them. And so I want to focus a workshop on that too as well.
Can you tell us more about your community garden at Sherman Park?
So it's interesting. So I started the community garden as Peace Garden before I was even employed with Sherman Park. And I didn't start it, actually. It's a team of people, but I got involved with its groundwork, Boys and Girls Club, UW Extension, and Sherman Park Community Association. It's probably someone else. I hope I'm not forgetting. But those are the main people. And then Peace Garden Project jumped in. And so we started the garden. The first year was last year. And it didn't really get to take off because of the unrest. It ended up closing the park and people didn't want to come to the park. And I don't know. So at the end of the year, we noticed like it was actually stuff growing that it had been planted, but it just hadn't. They kind of abandoned it. It was lettuce and some herbs, and we don't know what happened. So this year I said that I would make an active, just make sure that we really maintain it. We really get people in the whole plots and we really put it to use, this year and not let it go like it did last year. And that's what happened. We filled up out of the community plots. We only have one left and it turned out really good this year. It looks good. And so I'm really proud to have had a part in that.
You've mentioned Victory Gardens too. Can you tell us about Victory Gardens?
I think Victory Gardens is awesome. They promote people growing their own food. And so they bring a raised bed and the dirt, the organic dirt, and it's composted dirt. They gave me seeds. They gave me a lot of tips. They came in and spoke, to help people with starting their own garden. You can go get your own wood and dirt. It may cost the same or not. I'm not sure. But it was just really easy for them to just come, put the bed down for me, and come put the dirt wherever I needed it to go. And I didn't have to do anything. And so I like that. And in our neighborhood, they had like a special this year where we only had to pay $50. And so I think that really encouraged a lot of people to get it, and it helped me to get it because that's kind of what the holdup was before. The cost, it costs maybe anywhere from like I think $175, and it can go up if you want one more bed. But $50, I mean, why not? And so I did it, and they came, and I think I've had the garden for a couple of months now. It's doing okay. It's not as good as my garden in the park, but it's okay. Yeah, so Victory Gardens, their goal is to just, again, get through the community and get as many people gardening as they can.
I was hoping to talk a little bit about just food landscapes in general and the role you think that has in Sherman Park. Your work with the community gardens and Victory Garden, of course, is helping people a lot with that, but I know that food landscapes is an issue. Do you have anything you'd like to say about that?
I got some ideas for that. So, like the lot on 55th and then Trickleby, we're planning on, in the future, like having farmers markets in those areas, just like the farmers markets go around to some of these smaller parks, like Endurance Park and, I don't know, another park I saw recently. And we would like to have like a few days where we do different things too on those spaces, and farmers markets is one. Also, Peace Garden Project has this idea with pocket gardens. And so with the pocket gardens, that would be like this garden bed about this size. One block might have greens. The next block might have tomatoes. The other one might have green beans. But they'll all be like in the vicinity of each other. And then you have up center. I'm thinking of a lot in particular next to a store. Since the stores are every block and they have all these poor food choices, why not have fresh fruits and vegetables in between them? So it's a store, but it'll be some lettuce there. It'll be some cucumbers there or whatever, greens. Everybody likes greens, right? You know, tomatoes. And people say, oh, well, when we put those things in the stores, they don't get bought. You have to think selective growing. Tomatoes. I don't eat them, but everybody loves tomatoes. They'll be gone. You know, greens. They'll be gone. Cabbage will be gone. Brussels, things like that. Healthy things. You know, and we should put those in little areas throughout, and then it won't be a food desert, and then no one has to steal food. I don't believe in stealing food. I think we should plant enough for everybody to have it.
I love that. It's like on the way to walk into the store to go buy a bag of chips or soda, you can pick an entire salad if you hit the right block.
It might be a strawberry bush next to that tree. And you could eat some strawberries instead of some chips.
That's amazing. You had mentioned, 55th and Center, where the trees have gone in, you have a vision of farmers markets and night markets. Is there anywhere in the area right now where there are places like that to go?
No. Well, I know, okay, so it's farmers markets going around to the Sherman Park area to small parks. Like, I know for a fact, I just saw a farmers market was at Enderus Park one night. So it's things like that going on, but not like a night market or fun. We have the Washington Park Wednesday night, which they have jazz and vendors come in. That's like a larger scale thing. I would like to have like a mini something like that. Maybe one local vendor. Like we have a Jamaican truck that he's my neighbor. Like maybe he can go to one of those lots one day and sell his stuff. You know, I would like to have people like that who are from the community or whatever. It might be someone else who has a small restaurant or who sells certain things. I would have them come to that versus a larger, place.
I want to back up for just a minute because I heard you you quickly mentioned something earlier about the difference in care that a lot of tenants put in versus homeowners. And that's a theme that has been coming up in a lot of our interviews, tensions between renters and homeowners, and also absentee landlords.
That is an issue.
Yeah, and that's something people have been talking a lot about. It seems to be something that a lot of people care about. What are your thoughts on that?
Those are issues. I would probably agree that it's less renters that are prideful as homeowners, but there are some. It's always the misconception that renters don't care. All of them aren't the same. Just like you can never put all of one people in one category. So it is a group of renters that do care. But we have a lot of people in the community who don't value things, just like any other thing. Unfortunately, people don't treat your stuff like you treat your stuff. That's just the bottom line. You have people who treat it honestly almost like they would theirs, or who genuinely would try to, but it's always a little different than if you would do it differently, so it is a lack of respect for people's property. They don't have to pay for it. That's a lot of people's thoughts. Oh, well, I don't have to pay for it. It's not my stuff. But that's the wrong perception to have, because all of that reflects on the community. When this property goes down, that makes the next one look bad, or that brings the property down in the area. So we got a lot of landlords who are just looking for money. And they have certain people in the homes doing certain things, and you have neighbors who are homeowners who are constantly complaining about the same issues. with different tenants. So then you look at the landlords. They're out of town. They have management companies doing it, and they're half managing. And they're not going to stop the income. You know, some of these absentee landlords are like the drug dealers. They're not going to stop their flow of income. They're going to get it by any means necessary. You know, and that's just a way to look at it. And it is an issue. The absentee landlords is just as big of an issue as drugs in the community, you know.
In terms of some of these properties, whether it be because of tenants or because of absentee landlords that are in disrepair or have CD activity going on, there are, through doing these interviews, I've learned about several different grant programs or tax rebate programs that will help people with repairing their homes. Do you think that is that something that helps people out, or that people aren't taking full advantage of? Do people just not know about it?
Yes and no. That's one of those things, like when you get in community work, you know, like, okay, yeah, they have this service, but then it's always catches to that. It's not. It's a limit. And then they do things like, okay, look at what we're talking about. Look at the area that we're talking about. It's not a map in here, but you got to think. It's just like saying, okay, I have $100,000, but I can only give it to X amount of people, 50 people, but it's 200 applying for it. What difference does it make? I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And then to all of you people, like, you might need 20, but I can only give you 5. I can only give you 10. Next, you got to wait 5 years for me to give you some more. So it helps. It does help. I don't want to say it doesn't help, but it doesn't help enough. It's a lot of things that are good, but it's not good enough. You know, it's just more people with a need for some of the things that need to be done. And then you got some people, like you mentioned earlier, you brought up a good point. A lot of these people are older, and they don't even have access to online things to know about some of the things that are out here. So by the time they get wind of it, the funds are gone. You know, so it needs to be more services to help the elderly get things too. And to reach out and seek and look for elderly people to assist with things like that too. Because they end up getting caught up in that a lot with fines and things, and it's just, it's hard to see, but it definitely is a problem with absentee landlords and properties and some of these tenants, and it becoming nuisance properties. Absolutely.
What's your dream or your vision for Sherman Park moving forward? If you could paint a picture of Sherman Park in the future for us, if everything went as you wanted it to. I would like to see more than anything, aside from the crime, it all goes to police-community relations. I would love to see better police-community relations. I think they're awful in the area, and I think we really need to work on it. And I also think that's part of what happened last year. It really had nothing to do with the incident that day. It just was like the pot boiled over, the teapot whistled that day. And as a resident and a mother of black sons, I understand the tension in the community. I understand it. And I think we need to work on that a lot going forward. And I don't think much has changed since last year. If anything, it may have gotten worse. Can you think, what do you think can be done to make the community and police relationship better? Where would you start with that?
Where would I start?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I think the police chief needs to, instead of just doing community police relation training or community police training, it shouldn't just go to the community police officers. It certainly needs to go to all of them. Because I was told that all of them don't get the community policing training, so I have an issue with that. I wouldn't understand how someone can come from out of the city and you could pluck them in the inner city of Milwaukee and not give them any type of community police training. I have an issue with that. And I have an issue that they don't have an issue with that, with the way that police community relations are. I think that every single police officer, especially ones that come out of Milwaukee, should have some type of community police training. And I also think that all the officers, especially ones who are working in neighborhoods they don't live in, should have to be required to go to at least a couple positive community events before they start working in those areas, because you have people who are working in areas who they're not familiar with, and they've made perceptions, whether they meant to or not. They have, from what they've seen, because that's what you do. And they need a positive perception going in. I don't think the media has been a positive perception of things going on in the community. And so I would like to see that with the police. I think that would help, amongst many other things. That would be a start. Beat cops, regular cops who know who we are in the community. I don't know. They need some personality tests too. I mean, you have to have personality tests working in call centers, you know. So yeah, that's what I think for a start.
I agree with you so much. I do. And I don't know, be maybe a little too honest in saying that I'd never really spent any time in Sherman Park before this class, and coming into it, I had preconceived notions, and not even ones that I had formed myself. I didn't know much about Sherman Park, but just telling people I knew, oh, I'm starting this course. Oh, what's it about? Oh, we're going into Sherman Park and doing this, and this. And just from the reactions I got from people, I had a prejudgment of what this community was before I got here. And even just from spending a few weeks talking to people, interviewing, walking around, talking to people who are involved in the community and kids and business owners, it's completely different than I ever would have thought. But I never would have gotten that unless I put myself out there and talked to people. And that absolutely should be required of the cops. If they could just spend 3 weeks walking around and talking to people.
And I'm glad you said that, because, you know, and people don't admit stuff. People think whatever about areas. Like, we can talk all day about preconceived notions. I went out to, it was kind of off of Highway 100. One of my donations came from a lady named Betty. Betty is next to Chippewa Park, and she donated quite a bit of flowers to the organization Peace Garden Project and Sherman Park. She had a flower sale, and I was leaving urgent care from out there with my son, and I saw that she had a flower sale. So I pulled up to Betty's house, and I felt an automatic uneasiness. I was kind of nervous to get out of my car with my son in Betty's neighborhood. And I don't know where or why I got that feeling, but I just did. And I'm like a person against the grain, and I think that's why I do my job so good with people. I just jumped off the porch, as they say, and said, you know what? We don't want people doing this to us. Don't do it to them. Just get out of the car. Talk to her. Turns out, me and Betty had a lot in common. She lived and grew up in Sherman Park. Another lady got out and walked up, and she came from Sherman Park. And Betty, in essence, ended up telling me she was going to donate all of these flowers to me. And so that kind of goes to what you're saying. If more people would just open up and let go of preconceived notions, we could all just get along a lot better. Mm-hmm. You know, and here Betty is. She's probably maybe in her 50s, older white lady. Another white lady walked up, and it's me and my black son. And here I am thinking they were going to act funny or give me a look because I had my son with me or whatever. And they're just as sweet as pie. And we all got along, and it was just really nice, you know. And so Betty, she's great. And so that was really nice. And she gave me so many flowers, like $500, $600 worth of perennials, y'all. So thank you, Betty. And I have a new relationship with this lady. She knows what I do and she loves it, and I'm in her old community, and now she's had a part to give back to where she came from, and now Betty's flowers are all over Sherman Park, so that's just awesome. Things like that.
That is so awesome. I'm amazed by how much my I guess perception of this neighborhood has changed in just like 3 short weeks. Before this course started, I was nervous about being here, and now I'm like, gosh, I love this place. I love the people here. I want to spend time here after the course ends,
That's great. Come visit us. But yeah, if the police could do what me and you did, or what plenty people do every day, I think it would be okay, because people do have prejudice and preconceived notions. People can admit, and some people won't admit it, but we all do. And I admit it. And if more people would just be honest and have conversations, and then they can get past those things that they think. I've always been very open. I always talk about issues, injustices, and things, and I don't have a filter. I don't care that you're white and I'm talking to you, or I don't care that you're black and I'm talking to you about injustices. I'm not going to bite my tongue. If we dance around a pink elephant and we don't talk about it, we'll never fix it. So we have to get to it, and stop dancing around the issues we know are there, and that's what we need to do. The police need to do it, and the community needs to do it, and it's always the community, it works 2 ways types of things going on, but when you have a broken trust, you have to build the trust back. So it doesn't go 2 ways. All the time.
Do that unless you know each other. They have to talk to you and know you.
Right. So no, the law enforcement has a lot to mend with the community in this area in order for them to trust them and work both ways, and that's what needs to happen. And we, the community doesn't feel like it's a sense of care and concern, and we had to get to that. And I think those classes would help, and just certain things would help get us to that. And we have to get to that. We can't be at odds with the law enforcement, So I just try and talk to youth and promote law enforcement and try and get them involved in community issues, policing, politics. Because, if we feel like the system doesn't work for us, we have to break it, and start a new system. So that's pretty much what we need to do with the police.
I'm going to try to wind up on something like a happy note, I guess. I know that you care so much about spending time outside and beautification of the community, and I was interested in asking you what your favorite place in Sherman Park to spend time outside is and why. A spot that speaks to you.
I guess I would say the park. The park is like my escape. It's right there. It's 2 blocks from my home. I didn't have transportation for a while up until last summer. So no matter what kind of day, good or bad or whatever, bored, I could just walk to the park. And so much happened to change my life in that park. Like, I made so many connections. I found a lot of help and support doing what I do. And the kids are like everything. Like, to change kids, like, that's makes my heart full. To work with them, for them to know me, and for them not to deal with everybody and them to deal with, me, or to remember me, and to want to help me with the community garden and stuff because they remember me being there. Kids and people who need help in the community, who need love and support, they like consistency. They don't want people to just come through one time with flyers or cameras. They want you to come through every day, every week, every month. They want to see you after that, to know that you really care. And so it's just a lot of love in the park with all the different people and the kids that I work with. And it's a happy place, Even with the unrest that happened, it's still my happy place.
That's awesome. I love that. I felt that when I was there, I think.
It just give you a sense of happy. No
It's
matter
a-
what. It's something. It's an energy here.
Yeah. Joy, do you have any questions that you want to ask?
No, you actually covered the ones that I
Really?
needed.
Oh, good. Okay, well, Camille, is there, I don't want to cut you short, is there anything that you want to add, things we didn't ask you that you want to talk about?
You got everything.
Really? Good.
You got everything.
That's
Really
great.
good.
Okay, well then I guess we'll wind up. I'm Stephanie Giesland again. Joy Huntington has been recording, and we've been talking to the lovely Miss Camille Mays here at the Sherman Park Community Association building on Fond du Lac Avenue. Thank you again so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you for having me. It's pretty cool. So when will this be online?
Okay, so we still have some stuff we have to do with that. We have to, before they're like posted, we have to go, it's actually a really cool system I didn't know existed, but they can take these interviews and we go through and we re-listen to them and we tag certain times within the interview, like whenever you and I like change topics, basically.
Oh.
And what that does is basically like how you can look for search words on Google. People can look in a database like, oh, I want to hear like first-hand accounts, like interviews with people talking about the Peace Garden Project or talking about Sherman Park, whatever. And it makes it searchable. So we have to go through and kind of code all this stuff in there first so that we can put it in that database. And then, like, I think that it'll technically be like on YouTube tonight, but it won't be public until we go through and do all of that, right?
Until about, I think, August 12th or 13th.
August 12th is when we wrap up, yeah, so I'm assuming that's when it is. But we, I don't know if Dr. Sen told you, but we have, our final exhibition is going to be August 12th. I don't know if we have the times definitively set, but he's thinking the afternoon, maybe I think like 5 to 7 or something. And that's when we're going to have everything sort of on display to the public, if you want to stop by. Otherwise, until this course ends on Fridays from 2 to 4, we're open for community discussion as well at the Old Finney Library. People can just stop in and kind of ask us how we're, like, our progress is and what we're working on.
You got, one of y'all got my phone number?
Yeah.
Can you text me the times?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
No problem. No
That
problem.
I don't do good with emails. I might not see
I'm
the
the same way.
email right away.
I'm the same way.